What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another episode of the Forgotten Race Review. Today, at the request of the Black Dragon Disciple, Falka Rhiannon, we'll be cracking open our copy of Blood of Shadows once again to talk about the Fetchling. If you guys have any requests for this series, throw them in the comments, and as always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, helps out a lot. Before we get underway, this episode of the Forgotten Race Review was brought to you in part by the Inn of Planar Crossroads. Hey guys, these guys are trying to get to 200 subscribers so they can run a special celebration one-shot. They're like 7 subscribers away real quick. If you're not subscribed yet, just click right up there to be directed to IOPC, hit that subscribe button, and hey, if you get lucky, you might get to play in that one-shot. Now, let's dive in. Alrighty, so in pop culture, in fantasy, things of that nature, the concept of the dark, twisted, alternate reality exists all over the place, everywhere from Vulcans with goatees in Star Trek to Stranger Things in the Upside Down, and everywhere in between. Twisted worlds of shadow are out there. Twisted worlds of shadow where things are kind of similar to what we would expect on Earth, but just different enough to make them unsettling. In Pathfinder, we have the Plane of Shadow, and really the Plane of Shadow has been with us for a long, long time throughout Dungeons & Dragons, but it is from the Plane of Shadow that the Fetchling hails. As the Aslanti saw their sky fill with meteors that portended the cataclysm of Earthfall, some of them accepted an offer of salvation from a being known as the Widow. Fleeing through a rift the Widow opened into the Shadow Plane, these humans were saved, but they were also trapped. Over generations, the refugees adapted and were altered by their new home, becoming the colorless, gaunt humanoids known as Fetchlings. Over the subsequent millennia, many Fetchlings have mastered planar travel and occasionally return to the material plane, making excursions to experience the vibrant colors and music that are so rare on the Plane of Shadow. Some Fetchlings have emigrated back to Galarion, although they often have trouble blending in on their old homeworld because, tall, dark, creepy shadow guys. A small minority of Fetchlings exist in most large cities, but there are 2 major population concentrations on the material plane. One of those is Nidal, where they live as underclass on the margins of society. The other is in Absalom, where they often carry trade between that city and Shadow Absalom, Absalom's great reflection onto the Plane of Shadow. And if you'd like to learn about these regions, follow this card right up here to be directed to the Inner Sea region, a 5-minute tour, a series we recently put the capstone on. Fetchlings, for the most part, resemble unnaturally live, bordering on fragile humans. Their adopted home has drained their skin and hair of bright colors. Their complexion ranges from stark white to deep black and includes all the various shades of gray in between. Their eyes are pupilless and pronounced, and they typically glow a luminescent shade of yellow-green, though rare individuals possess blue-green eyes. Some members of higher station, or those who dwell on the material plane, dye their hair with more striking colors, often favoring deep shades of violet, blue, and crimson. A Fetchling reaches adulthood at 20 years. Males range in height from 5'6" to 6'4", females literally just 2 inches shorter, and again, these guys are incredibly gaunt. The most heavy male, if you use the random Fetchling height and weight table, despite being 6'4", is 126 pounds, the female being 116 pounds. The maximum age for your Fetchling character is 125 plus 3d20 years, which means at just shy of 200 years, your Fetchling can run around on the material plane, or run around on the shadow plane, everywhere in between. Now, let's get down to the stats. Fetchlings are quick and forceful, but they're often strange and easily distracted. As it's very often to see in Pathfinder, they have a +2 on their dexterity and charisma, but a -2 to their wisdom. Fetchlings are native outsiders. They're medium creatures with a base speed of 30 feet. Fetchlings have an ability called Shadow Blending. Attacks against a Fetchling in dim light have a 50% mischance instead of the normal 20. The ability doesn't grant concealment, it simply increases the mischance. They also have Cold Resistance 5 and Electricity Resistance 5, and a +2 racial bonus on Knowledge the Planes and Stealth checks. A Fetchling can use Disguise Self once per day as a spell-like ability. They can assume the form of any humanoid creature. Their caster level is equal to their total hit dice. When a Fetchling reaches 9th level, in any combination of classes, he gains Shadow Walk, self-only, as a spell-like ability. When a Fetchling reaches 13th level in any combination of classes, they gain Plane Shift, self-only, to the Shadow Plane or the Material Plane only, usable once per day. Fetchlings have low light vision and dark vision up to 60 feet. So I've been in a party with a Fetchling before, a Fetchling Mesmerist, no less. But we never really got to explore the Fetchling or the Shadow Plane that much. Really, we were more fixated on the fact that the Mesmerist has proficiency with sword canes, and so the Mesmerist was dual-wielding them, which is hilarious. But if I was to play a Fetchling, it's probably something like a Mesmerist that I would play. We don't often talk about them, but I will bring up that the Fetchling does have an alternate racial trait, Emissary, which is one of my favorites. Once per day, they can roll twice when making a bluff or diplomacy check and take the better roll. This does replace Shadow Blending, which is pretty strong, and on that note, these guys seem to make wonderful Shadow Dancers. That's a prestige class that pretty much every single solitary class in Pathfinder can have pretty easy access to. And actually, the guy who is editing this is playing an Unchained Rogue over at Rise of the Runelords, who has just recently prestiged into Shadow Dancer. And hey, if you'd like to check that out, follow this card right up here. Now, if I were to GM for a Fetchling, we would definitely be taking the campaign to the Plane of Shadow for quite a while, if for no other reason than by 13th level that Fetchling's probably trying to get there anyway. Going to the Plane of Shadow on Golarion, or really in any setting, lets you have a little bit more freedom to play around, because you imagine the Plane of Shadow, again like we talked about with Alternate Universe Spock or Stranger Things, is pretty similar. Well, I guess Stranger Things and the creepy flower dog monsters aren't similar at all. Whatever. Pretty similar to what you would see on the material plane, with very subtle differences. Those very subtle differences might serve to advance the story or give the players a little more information into what they're doing. Are there any fans of Neverwinter Nights 2 out there? And if so, did you ever play Mask of the Betrayer? Though that expansion was particularly hard if you didn't know what you were doing, you did spend quite a bit of time on the Plane of Shadow, and you had to go to the Plane of Shadow to advance the plot on several occasions. If nothing else, a Fetchling Shadow Dancer will certainly be able to do whatever it is they want to do if you send them there. But what do you guys think about the Fetchling? Have you guys ever played a Fetchling? Have you ever GM'd for a Fetchling? Or have you ever taken a campaign to the Plane of Shadow? I seriously doubt that Doomsday Dawn will go to the Plane of Shadow, but hey, I guess you never know. That giveaway's still running, guys. You've got till the 2nd of July to follow this card right up here to be directed to our Doomsday Dawn giveaway video. 6 lucky subscribers will run through the first ever published bit of content for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Remember that patronage at any tier grants you a second entry, and hey, if we can get up about $100 more a month on Patreon, I'll take another group of 6 through. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. The next episode of the Forgotten Race Review, where we cover the Gargoyle, drops next Monday.